Do you believe that
peak oil.
that peak oil is an oil company conspircy?
Peak oil it's not only an oil company conspiracy. It's sort of it's a misconception in economics. Peak oil, any kind of a calculation like that is based on assumptions. The old peak oil assumption was based on, I think, $30 or $40 a barrel, and under that assumption, the analysis was pretty accurate. But today, oil is priced at over $70 a barrel. So the old peak oil conclusions are totally off the wall. Chavez tells us that at over $50 a barrel, and today we're over 70, that using the sands from the Orinoco area of Venezuela, Venezuela has more oil than the Middle East. And he says he bases that on our own DOE estimates of what's there. So peak oil, our measurements of that whole theory of peak oil and when it comes to an end is dependent on what price of oil you put. As you increase the price of oil, you increase the places you can get it from. Oil is in everything. You could get it out of this podium if you could pay enough money to do that. You could wring oil out of this. So the whole idea of peak oil and the decline, and the oil companies certainly are using that today with these old numbers that are around $30 or $40 a barrel, which are irrelevant, saying we're running out of it, you got to be careful and da-da-da-da-da. And of course, the fact that the supply is currently restricted because of what's going on in the Middle East is to their advantage. After all, ExxonMobil has made record profits in the last several quarters of over $10 billion, while the rest of us are being gouged at the oil pump. Thanks.
What's realistic? What can we really do to take on these corporations when the deep disease is fascism?
Okay. What we do know is that we have been extremely successful. We have some amazingly good models in this country right now of ways to rein in corporations and get them to change radically. And a lot of that's going to be in my next book. Amnesty International has done it. Move On has done it. Pachamama Alliance down in San Francisco has done it. Rainforest Action Network has done it. But they've not gone after the basic premise of what the corporation's main goals are. But we can do that too. What we have to do is talk, speak loudly. There's all kinds of tactics that are used. For example, one of the ways Rainforest Action Network went after Home Depot. And Home Depot wouldn't talk to them, gave them a cold shoulder, just wouldn't negotiate with them. So Rainforest Action Network had demonstrators out around the buildings, and they hung banners and did things. And then one of the employees of Home Depot gave Rainforest Action Network the code to their PA systems, and as a good globalization organization, they had one code for all their stores across the world. And so on one day, 162 Rainforest Action Network volunteers went into 162 stores and switched on with the code, the PA system, and they said something like this: "Listen up, shoppers. There's a really good deal on rainforest products on aisle 10. Watch your step because there may be blood on the floor. But get down to aisle 10 right now and buy these rainforest woods and know that in the process you're going to be killing a lot of indigenous people and destroying a lot of trees that may have cancer-curing drugs in them. But please step up and go right down to aisle 10 now. Watch the blood on the floor." And they didn't hurt anybody. They didn't stop any shoppers. They didn't have pickets outside. But the phones rang off the hook at the headquarters in Atlanta that day. And after that, Home Depot, negotiated with them and implemented a whole new set of policies. And today is not using anything that's made with rainforest or old growth trees. It worked. And there's a lot of techniques. When they went after Citicorp wouldn't talk with them either. And the president of Citicorp, the CEO, was in London for a huge meeting with big investors in London. He got up in the morning to have breakfast. They delivered him the London Times, and The back page had a full-page ad with his picture and George Bush's and the president of the World Bank, the three of them there on the back cover, and it said, "Wanted for destroying the future of our children." And after that, the same CEO had given $100 million to his alma mater, Columbia University. When he went there to speak, to accept the money, Rainforest Action Network had banners all over the place and protesters. Citicorp negotiated, and they changed their policies. There's many things we can do, and we've got to understand that the men and women who run these organizations are humans like us. They're vulnerable. They hurt. When they see something like that in the newspaper and they know their kids are looking at it, it hurts. And they will come around. They're people like us. We can bring them around. We can use fancy words like fascism, and I agree with you, and we can use all these words, the left, the right, and so on, but beneath all that is just a human being. And these human beings are vulnerable. One more.
Is there something beyond corporations that's maybe a bigger evil, and that would be nations or groups of people that use corporations for militarism, racism, materialism? In other words, can we take a jump further from just the corporations to philosophies of chosen people or we're better than you, or racism and stuff like that is happening in the world today? I mean,
I think the corporations use all those philosophies. My experience, and I can only speak from experience, I'm not a theorist, I'm not an academician, I don't consider myself an intellectual at all. I only speak from experience. And my experience is that the corporations are running this. And I don't call them evil. I've been very clear on that. And the men and women who run them are not evil people. I've never met an evil CEO personally. There may be some out there, but I haven't met them. They're working under a false assumption. They're working on the assumption, and there's a young lady here earlier tonight that says it's the law in this land, which it isn't, but a lot of people believe it is, that they should maximize the return for a few of them. That they should be, and we've made greed a policy. It's taught in our business schools. But we need to change that. It's not an evil, it's a false assumption, and it's something we've all bought into. And every time we go to Walmart or one of these stores that has slaves in China and elsewhere in the world, we're buying into that premise. And every time we honor a man who makes a career by being on television saying, "You're fired," every time, you know, our heroes fly in private jets, we're honoring that. And it's a system, it's a philosophy in a way that we bought into. We need to change that. And yes, they use the religious arguments, they use all of these arguments to promote these things. But in my opinion and in my experience, almost all of our most serious problems go back to the corporations. Whether these are problems of militarization, they're the ones who benefit the most. I mean, we may think we lost the war in Vietnam, but the corporations don't think they lost it. And the same in Iraq. We're losing a lot of men and women there, but Bechtel and Halliburton and everybody else, and Lockheed Martin and all the others, are getting very, very wealthy in this process. General Electric, all of them, are getting very, very wealthy. They don't see this as a lost war. This is a victory for them. And, you know, so I think all of our most serious problems go back to that. And if we can transform these corporations, yes, we also have to look at our basic value system, but I think that's there. It's expressed in our sacred documents. And so I think that's a really good note to end on, that if we are to make this a better world for our children, if that is our desire, and I believe every one of us feels that way, then we must get together and work very hard, and each one of us bring our own talents and our own passions to bear on accomplishing that objective. And I know that together we can do that. And I think it can really start here with this amazing group of people. And so I encourage you to think more, to work together, to come up with plans as to how we're going to change the system. And I thank you very much. Good night.